Beyond a wardrobe closet, a house needs storage for all kinds of stuff. But where do you locate those extra closets? You want to place them and proportion them wisely. After decades designing dozens of houses, I learned to arrange storage in specific, yet flexible configurations to offer a solution. Climate control and adequate space for favorite items is key. All right, let's dive into the question of storage in your house. To make the point of how important storage is, I want to tell you about a client that I have who owns one of the most lucrative businesses, small businesses that you can have in this country. Guess what it is? It's a storage facility. It's a business that is nothing but several rows of buildings that are basically large storage lockers. And these are popular across the country, and lots of people put their things into them that they have overflowing from their houses. And the point that I'm making here is that maybe we should be designing our houses a little more carefully to make sure that it can hold the things that we need it to hold. Now, I know sometimes we have possessions that we think we may want at a later date, or we're holding for somebody else down the road. And that's where those storage lockers come in. And those are kind of important to us. But what about the question of what storage we have in our house? And that's what this video is about. So let's take a look first at a house that I've designed, which I call the Brentwood model. And we'll go into this place first. It's about a 2,000 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 2-car garage, contemporary design, and sort of a square layout with a nice courtyard entry. And as we come into the entryway, the foyer of the house, we enter into a space that looks onto the courtyard. There's a powder room conveniently located off of that. And then we have this coat closet right here. Our coat closet is 48 inches long and 24 inches deep. Now, the length is plenty for the number of people that would likely be living in a house like this. The only thing that I would say here that is a little bit of a question is the depth of the closet. If you live, and by the way, this house is designed on a concrete slab foundation, and it has very little attic space. And that's a very typical scenario across the warmer climates of the United States, Southern California to Florida, Texas. Many of the houses are built on concrete slab foundations. You have no basement because you need a basement where you have a freezing condition in the winter, like in the Northeast or in the central upper plains of the United States. But in this case, we've designed this for a slab foundation. But let's say you had this house in a place that was in a colder climate. You could make that coat closet up to 30 inches deep, and therefore it would hold bulkier coats that you would have for that type of climate, like something that's a down coat, a big trench coat, a big overcoat that you might have. So you want to think about that sort of thing. And in this case, it'd be easy to take a few inches out of our pantry that we're going to take a look at in a minute to make that work here, which is one reason I like to line up closets and things that have some flexibility and space inside of them this way that you've seen here. So the other point that I can make here on the closet is that it has a 36-inch by 80-inch double door that opens into that closet. You can use a single door. As I've said before, I like using the double doors. I think they work really well and they look very nice, but they're a little bit more expensive. So you have some options there. You could put on a door a little bit narrower, but I wouldn't make it too narrow so that you can still be able to see into that closet around the ends of it so that you don't have something hiding back in a corner. One thing I meant to mention about a coat closet and coming into the house, what's very popular right now is what's called a drop zone. And I'm going to show you a picture here of a house that I designed that has one of these. And basically you come into a space, in this case it's off of the garage in the lower level of a 3-story house. You enter and there's a spot for taking your shoes off, a couple of bins to put your items in, some hooks to hang things on, your coats on, your backpacks on. And these are very popular right now. So that's kind of an option to the traditional coat closet that you see all the time. So just keep that in mind when you're designing houses too. It depends on the climate. It depends on the household that you have, what's required for your particular client or your particular potential buyer. Now, as we move over to our pantry here, this reminds me of a client that I had many years ago. This is quite some time, but I was measuring an existing house for a remodel, and it was a kitchen remodel. And this house was a pretty good sized place. It was a pretty nice neighborhood. And the kitchen had sort of a interior room to it that was a laundry slash pantry slash sort of junk room. And in that space, there was a very large, deep cabinet of dark wood that I was wondering what that was being used for. I just measured around it. I didn't necessarily look into it. But when I met with the client later on to talk about what they wanted to do with the pantry space that they had, and did they need that, and where did they want to put that space into the new arrangement, the owner said, I have no idea what's in that closet. And that struck me really odd. I thought, wow, okay, you don't know what's in there. So time went on. A few months later, kind of didn't work on that house anymore. The clients kind of went to the wayside, and it turned out that they were getting a divorce and they had sold the house. Now, if that has anything to do with a cabinet that you have no idea what's in, I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I just found it very strange and something to think about. You want your house to be organized. You want your house to feel like you know where things are, you know what's going on, you know where to find something, you know if you need to get rid of stuff and to clean out. It's kind of a sort of house hygiene question, I suppose. But I thought I would tell that story too, just to give you an idea of how important not only having storage space is, but keeping it organized. And that's the point of doing closets that are appropriately sized for the purpose. We've got a 66-inch deep by 48-inch wide space for this pantry. It's a good sized pantry for a smallish house. And I've done that because I just need to have plenty of space in this house for overflow items and food storage. The 12-inch deep shelving in here is meant to hold the groceries for the most part. You can put some of the bulkier items that you might get that you buy in bulk, for example, bulk cereal boxes, that you have a little bit deeper shelf in the back of this space that's 18 inches deep. That could also serve for a place to put small appliances that you use infrequently. You've got a little bit of space on the side here to hang a broom in the side of the closet. And note also that it has a 28-inch wide door that could be a 30-inch door if you really wanted to, give you just a little bit more room to get in and out. But a 28-inch door will work there. And again, if I wanted to take a few inches to put into the coat closet, it wouldn't take that much away from our pantry to make it slightly shorter. 66 inches is 5.5 feet, so if it were 5 feet, it would still work just fine. And that gives you plenty of storage. Let me go back out here to where you can see more of the whole plan. And you'll see the kitchen itself has plenty of space in it, upper cabinets, lower cabinets, countertop space. So we've got plenty of storage going on there. So we're pretty well covered in that portion of the house. Also, the powder room here, just notice that it has a long countertop where you can set things down, tissue box, soap, etc. in that space. And then the next area that I want to look at here is what is a sort of catch-all for the rest of the house. Linen, supplies, Christmas decorations. And this is a pretty good sized closet. Now it's long. It's not real deep, but it is long. 96 inches long, so it's 8 feet by 2 feet. Gives you 16 square feet of storage space, which is a pretty good size. And then I have outfitted it with 2 sets of 36-inch wide double doors. Again, the double door thing I think looks nicer. And it also lets you open up just a small portion of the closet rather than having to open up a big wide door or open a big long slider, which you could use in this case if you wanted to. But I think that this arrangement works pretty well in how this is configured. Now, since this closet here off of the hallway next to the bedrooms will hold plenty of things, And you can configure the shelving and arrangement inside of it any way you want. It could hold vacuum cleaners, it could hold tools, it could hold brooms, it could hold any amount of linen that you have, blankets, towels, sheets. But also what this reminds me of is the late great comedian George Carlin, who had a comedy routine about our stuff. And it was so hilarious. You should look it up on YouTube. It's out there. It's just wonderful. And what he says is he talks about all of our stuff and how we have to have our stuff. And like if we go on a trip, we have to have, this kind of stuff with us, and we have to have it packed away, and we get there and we set it out on a little countertop, and then we know where everything is, and then we go back home, and then we have all of our stuff. And so Carlin says, his quote is, "That's all your house is a cover for all your stuff." And it's true. It's just a place to put all your stuff. So I think that what we want to think about here is our stuff is important to us. Our stuff gives us memories. It gives us pleasure. I can tell you that my sister and myself both have collectibles that are toy related that we associate with the fondness of our childhood. And those make us feel very good. And we have to have a place for those somewhere in the house. And in some cases, you need a lot of storage if you have a big collection. I don't have a huge collection, neither does she. But I know people who collect toy items or models or whatever it is, and they have acres of stuff. A lot of people will have an entire basement full of these things. So you have people like that, and people like that really need a lot of storage. So I think this goes back to the question of, how well organized are you? How much space do you really need? How much space is reasonable? How much space do you want to allow and tolerate for yourself to use for your storage? So the other thing that I want to point out on this house plan here is that we have a pretty good sized laundry room. And in this laundry room, we've got upper cabinets and a little bit of lower cabinets. And because of that, this gives us more space for cleaning supplies and any kind of old towels that you use for cleaning. I know that I always keep a bank of old towels that I use to clean the house with. And it gives you a spot for putting supplies like auto cleaning supplies can go in those cabinets, things like that. You just want to think about stuff, like George Carlin says, that we need to store somewhere. So in this house, let's go back out and look over the whole plan again. You can see we've got 2 wall closets like we looked at in the last episode in the bedrooms here. They're pretty good size. They're about 9 feet long each. And then we have a big walk-in closet off of our primary bedroom that really serves and holds a lot of space. It's over 12.5 feet long, 7 feet wide. It's got a window in it, like I had showed in the previous episode on wardrobe closets. So we have plenty of storage space in this house. There's a little bit of space left over in the garage that you could have for storage, but this should cover somebody pretty well for, an average 2,000 square foot house. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at another house plan that I call the Ventura house plan. The house is quite a bit larger, so hold on a moment and we'll go to that plan. Okay, now I want to take a look at a little bit larger house. This is the 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, about a 2,600 square foot place with a 2-car garage. It has a 1 large living area in the middle of the house. But we want to also think about the storage issues that we have here, or the storage requirements that we want to consider for this house. And what we'll do here is open the plan, go in to this foyer area. Once again, what I've done here is I've indicated a coat closet that is right off of the main entryway. Now, if you see this, what I've done here is tuck this kind of away, and there's a powder room which is sort of secluded from the main part of the house, which I think is a good idea, because if you have guests and they need to go to use the restroom, they can go in there. It feels very private. It's out of the way. The noises and smells don't necessarily come out into the main part of the house. But also this coat closet here, which is a very typical 36 inches by 24 inches deep. It has a 28-inch door on it, and which is fine. But this reminds me of, I don't know what this really means, except that it reminds me that when I was a little kid, we had a little tiny entryway and the front door opened, and behind that door was a small closet, the coat closet. And I just always remember my father coming home and walking in that door and opening the closet to the coat closet door and taking his jacket off and hanging it up and turning around. And I'm excited to see him. And so I think that what you want to think about is that our houses have a ceremony to them, especially when we have spaces that we allow for this transition from the outside to the inside. And that's what this is all about, is coming into the house, making that transition to the inside, getting rid of the jacket, putting away an umbrella, for example, making sure your feet are clean, maybe taking your shoes off and putting on inside shoes or leaving shoes off completely. But I think that that's kind of a nice thing to consider when you're planning houses, is how you go from the inside or from the outside to the inside, or vice versa, from the inside to the outside, because you're going to be leaving and kind of doing the reverse of that, aren't you? And so are your guests. And that, giving that a space, and because this is a larger house, we have a good sized foyer here, and that makes plenty of room and kind of a ceremonial area that you can use in this place for that purpose. So again, we have a smallish coat closet, but it will serve this house just fine because we have lots of other storage here. And the next thing I want to look at is I've designed I just call it a storage closet. Now, this closet is 51 inches deep. That's a little over 4 feet. It's 5 feet wide, because you might notice that next to it is a walk-in closet, which is 7 feet wide and 5 feet deep. So that kind of lines up with each other nicely, which I like to do that when I lay out plans, is I know how much space I have to work with when I have a certain size of closet, and then I know I've got another closet next to it. I can also kind of play off of that dimension, which is what I've done here. And this is very similar to the pantry that we looked at in the Brentwood model just a few minutes ago. The size is about the same. The shelving is pretty much the same dimension. Again, you have a space that you can walk into. You have a more shallow shelf and you have a little bit deeper shelf. Shallow shelf can hold cleaning items. It can hold smaller items that you have that you need to store. It has the deeper shelf, which you can put blankets, or you can put bulkier pillows in, things like that. So you have this nice, good storage space. And sometimes I kind of like to call this the Costco closet. Lots of us shop at the big box stores and we buy bulk and we bring it home, and we need places to put that. If you have a closet like this, it can serve that purpose, which I think is kind of nice. And also, this reminds me of, and I think about this, is really interesting. It's interesting to me, maybe. Anyway, so when I was a child, going to my grandmother's house, and she had a small 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, little colonial. It was kind of a nice little house, but it was small. And I've got to remember that my grandmother was born in the early 1900s. She went through the Depression, and she had a habit of making sure that she caught sales when she bought groceries. And so in one of the bedrooms, there was a pretty good sized closet. It wasn't huge, but she had one portion of it that was shelved, and she kept a stash of sugar and flour and canned goods and anything that she would cook with over time. She had a stash of it, and because she would get it on sale and then put it back there and make sure that she had it. And that's kind of a similar thing that people can do now with planning something down the road, or making sure that you always have stock of stuff. I mean, look what happened with the pandemic. We had people running out of all kinds of things all of a sudden that we weren't really thinking would happen. So if you have spots like this in your house, it can serve that purpose. And I think that's a pretty good lesson, that I kind of got from my grandmother. And now I want to move down the house here, and we have a large bathroom that serves these 3 bedrooms on this wing of the house. The master bedroom is on the other side of the house and has its own area, the sequestered, they call it, the sequestered master bedroom plan or primary bedroom plan. And what we have here are 2 different closets. And one I've labeled as a linen closet that's 48 inches wide and 24 inches deep with a double 36-inch door that I like to do. And then we have this other closet that I just call supplies. And I've located this next to the bathroom because you have tissue boxes or toothpaste or toiletries, things like that are kind of necessary to use in this portion of the house, that now we have a spot for those. But we also have a separate closet for things like blankets and towels and sheets that need to remain dry and clean and well organized, while the other closet is smaller, so it can hold smaller items more easily. And again, I've not made it too deep. I've only made it 22 inches deep as opposed to the 24-inch deep linen closet that you see next to it there on the upper part of the screen. And that's plenty of space for smaller items in this supplies closet. So I call that a supplies closet. And then I put a small door on this closet because it's fairly narrow. It's only 30 inches wide. So I put in a 24-inch by 80-inch door. Serves us well. I think this is going to be plenty of storage for this house. Let me go back out here and I'll show you. I've got 2 big walk-in closets for the 2 other bedrooms here in that part of the house. But then I go back to this other bedroom in the back of the house here and I have a wall closet for it. But we have a double vanity in our bath number 2. And also, it's kind of hard to see. I'll tilt the plan a little bit so you can see it. We have a cabinet here, a big cabinet, deep cabinet here, that also serves for storage for this house. That's way more storage than you would probably ever need in a house like this. I mean, if you had 3 or 4 children or 5 children in a place like this, you probably would need it. But I thought I would do that for this house. Now, let's move over to this sequestered master bedroom here. So I want to mention that in this particular house, if you look at the primary bath, I don't have any extra storage space in there. And I think that you have to be cautious about putting in too much storage. One trend I've seen that I don't think is going to last very well is to kind of build a tower on the countertop for more storage next to a sink. I think, this is my opinion, I know, but I think that looks really bad. And I don't think it's a good idea to do that. I wouldn't plan it that way. If you're stuffing that much stuff in your cabinetry, you probably have an overflow of medicines and tissue papers and whatever else you have. Now, I know people have all kinds of devices that they use these days, and we love our electronics. There's things like that we have, but usually you can fit things into a couple of drawers, and that should be plenty of space. Again, you don't want to overstuff your house, and you don't want to collect too much stuff where you can't even know where everything is. Remember the story about the lady with the cabinet that she didn't even know what was in there. So I just want to point that out. Now, the other thing here is this big kitchen that is basically part of the living room. What we have is a big long wall in the back of this house here with that kitchen on it. And I've made a deep pantry on the left-hand side of the double oven. We have plenty of drawers and upper cabinets. As we go down, we have a big built-in refrigerator. And then we have more cabinetry underneath the island over here. This isn't a huge kitchen. It isn't too much space. And oh, by the way, we have a desk over here that I've designed, and then a couple of bookshelves above it where you could park a home computer there on the desktop and then park a nice chair to sit in. It gives you a place for planning and a spot for doing some quick work. But what I want to point out here is that in this design, what I've realized is I have this door into this bedroom. And this is a little bit of a side note, but I thought I would say this, is that what I'm going to do with this plan here is I'm going to create a place for that door to fold onto, because having doors that go like this that don't have a place to fold onto, or they have to swing 180 degrees, It's awkward, and a lot of times when you have doors like that, they can you'll swing it open and accidentally let go of the door, and it'll keep swinging it too fast, and it'll hit the wall and knock a hole in the drywall, stuff like that. So it's much better to have a door fold onto a 90-degree spot, a 90-degree wall, which we could easily do. And all I have to do is put it in a small pantry here, and we can access it from this portion of the kitchen. So for this pantry, what I'm going to do for you here is show you a two-dimensional sketch of this floor plan to illustrate what I've done and how I've put in this pantry here, and let that suffice for explaining what I've decided to do there. But I think that is something that I know that I go through when I design these houses, that sometimes I'll do something and then later on I'll realize, wait a minute, that may not be the best way to do that. That may not be the best idea. So you kind of always want to have some flexibility in your layouts and your designs and how you think about this. You come up with a little bit better of an idea, or you realize, this door really is not ideal. So how do we fix that? What will work? And in this case, we're going to put in that pantry. And I'll show you that here right now. You can see in the floor plan that this tucks in very nicely to this portion of the house, and it works out very well. Then we end up with just a little bit of extra space in our kitchen for more storage, more pantry, more bulk items, more small appliances that can be tucked away, appliances that you don't use very often. I think that's a really nice thing to have. So we'll go back to our plan here, and we'll zoom back out, and you can see what we have here. I just want to talk about this house a little bit more since we didn't look at everything very closely yet. But I've designed a dining room, flex room here at the front of the house that could be used as an office or could be a formal dining room. We have a dining area here. The living room is big enough to hold a couple of sofas and some chairs and have a television here near the fireplace, and we have built-in bookshelves. So we have one giant living area. And another thing I want to point out here is that I have indicated a sliding door that goes into a pocket, 3 sections of large panes, very large sashes that can fold into that wall. And then you have that big opening that people like to have, that indoor, outdoor, especially in California, where that climate is conducive to that sort of setup. But that's what that's for, and I thought I would point that out too. So one thing I want to do here again is mention that we have a primary bedroom. This is the bed wall over here. We've got the walk-in closet with a window in it, and we've got a footed tub, 2 sinks, shower, toilet compartment, plenty of windows, plenty of brightness, plenty of natural daylight throughout this house because we have a window in this hallway over here, so that hallway isn't dark during the day. Got a couple of windows in this bedroom, big window in the bathroom, 2 windows in this big bedroom right here. And you'll see, let's go back to our overall, and you'll see it's a pretty nice house, sort of the contemporary mid-century modern feel to it. You could style this house in many different ways. But that wraps us up for the storage closet episode, and I hope that you got something out of that and it helped you. And so we will talk more about what not to do in a house. Watch this next episode you now see on your screen to find out common mistakes made in many new houses.